Thank you very much, Chairman Tate. Calling this meeting to order real quick. We have two bills in front of you. I'm going to try to go real quick through them so that we can get to other meetings. House Bill number 177. You'll see it's in-person absentee voting authorized to be conducted using OMR equipment. We have a strike all on that. What we did was I just took our voting bill, early voting bill, and put that language in. We did have a relic in the former bill, previous bill, that wasn't needed, dealing with ballot harvestings. We already dealt with that last year, so I just took that out. That's the only change between our bill and this bill in the strike all. So that is what we're doing there with House Bill number 177. Are there any questions? Senator Tate? Their bill required for in-person absentee voting for the ballots that are cast, instead of going into an envelope, they go directly into the voting machine. That's what their bill did. So we're doing a strike all. There's also still required absentee excuses. So we're just putting our language into their bill. Any other questions, Senator Blackwell?
In their bill, working is an excuse. Was an accepted excuse if you're working that day.
That's correct. Yes, that is correct. And I'll tell you, what I expect to happen and what I imagine will happen after talking with my counterpart, Representative Sanford. We do have some very similar language that we're working on, and I think that this will maybe help us get at the conference. They passed our bill out of their committee and did a strike all and did the same thing. And so we're doing that with this one just to keep two vehicles alive to see what we can make happen. Any other questions?
Title sufficient, do pass, strike all.
Okay, the motion is title sufficient, do pass, strike all. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Okay, the ayes have it. That will be reported out. The next bill and last bill we have today is House Bill number 811. We have a strike all in front of you, and just to kind of go through and let you know what we've done. At first, on looks like starting in lines 111 on through a few more pages there, we just brought some conforming language in to deal with our new congressional bill that we passed to move midterm congressional elections to March now on all years, not just on presidential years. So we brought conforming language there. Starting on line 157, we took language from another bill and added it here, which deals with a qualifying form for all levels of elections that the Secretary of State shall prepare so that we have one uniform qualifying form to work on. I want to point out on line 160 that we require a physical address. This was a part of a bill that Senator Solly Norwood dropped here in our committee, and we were able to put that in there. The purpose of his bill was to make sure that people couldn't qualify using P.O. boxes. So we've got physical address there now. You'll see that candidates have to, when they sign that, they do have to certify that they meet the qualifications for the office that they are running for. Starting at lines looks like 205 and down a few more sections there, we're bringing forth, breaking down the certification process into steps, just to clarify that process. Lines 232, starting at line 232 and down, this is new language that deals with anyone that's voting outside of a district. If you vote outside of your district within the 2 years prior to running, you're not qualified to run, because obviously you vote where you live. And so that is something that we've been looking at in the last few elections and was actually subject of several bills this year. So we've got that here. Line 240 and down deals with the time frame necessary to qualify. This is directing the executive committee when you have that. I will point out that where it says 15 days for qualifying deadline for federal midterms, that could change if our qualifying for congressional office changes, if there's other changes there for those midterms. But we do have a reverse repealer. That's what I wanted to mention, is we have a reverse repealer in this. So we're going to move, we're going to keep working on this some. And you'll note how warm this paper is in front of you. That's because our attorney, Allison, worked very hard. Allison Bradshaw, he worked very hard to get this to us here just before the meeting. Thank you. On line 444, I'm going to offer an amendment here. And the reason to do so is because if you'll see on line 513, that paragraph 5 does exactly the same thing we're doing here, which let me go ahead and explain that and I'll come back to my amendment. This just discusses independent candidates having to also qualify using the same voting form. And that is just qualified using the Elections Commission. And then finally, we've got a large portion at the back, starting on line 611, that addresses appeals of the decisions of the Elections Commission if they do not qualify a candidate. And it's similar to what parties do, but that applies to independent candidates. Now it just makes that same process. The rest of the bill is really just bringing forward some conforming language. I know, again, mentioning that this just dropped in front of us. I do have a reverse repealer in this bill. So we will be discussing this forward, but I think what we do have in front of us is a bill that addresses several different issues where we've heard from our colleagues dealing with qualifying, and we brought some of those together into this bill. So let me ask now, do I have any questions on this bill at this time? Yes, Senator Bryan.
I got a message you were looking for a quorum.
That is correct.
I just wondered why anybody thought I wanted you to have a quorum. It seemed an odd person to notify of that.
Well, I will note, Senator Bryan, I did not start early, so that I will throw that out there.
Oh, thank heaven for small favors. This is just a technical question, and I'm trying to keep up with the underlying language. And this has to do with voting within 2 years or whatever the period is. I think there are two separate issues. One is, are you a valid resident of the area? And secondly, did you vote? And so that if you voted somewhere, the issue of residency is irrelevant because you voted and that's the end of it. But even if you did not vote somewhere else, you still have to prove residency. And I can't tell, just looking through this hurriedly, if the requirement for residency is still part of the law. But I mean, obviously, we want that in there. And so somebody somewhere somehow needs to check and make sure that the residency requirement also exists.
That's correct, Senator Bryan. Yes, we have that as well. If you recall, there were several candidates statewide and in different districts in this last election cycle. And the question was, well, did you vote where you live or do you vote where you've been voting? And so this clarifies that. It says that it also adds that requirement. But yes, the physical address requirement is still in the language, but it just adds if you voted somewhere outside of the district where you're trying to run within the 2 years or whatever that qualifying period is for you to be able to qualify, that you cannot qualify as a candidate.
Well, I'm just hurriedly flipping through this, and there's a list of things that it says the appropriate election commission shall determine, and it's the new language that says you've got to determine if the individual voted somewhere else within the past 2 years, but I don't see the language that says the election commission has to determine their residency. I guess that's the way things work, but that's just what I'm asking somebody to double check.
Yes, Senator Bryan, line 552 says whether each candidate meets all other qualifications to hold office. Yeah. Okay, and the residency portion of that is set by different statute, but that's where that brings that forward. So it would be a qualification. And I'm happy to continue to look at it.
I'm just somebody who can do all the cross references needs to look at it. I'm even assuming for purposes of argument, I would have the ability to understand it. I'm too tired to.
Right. Well, we all love a deadline day. Thank you, Senator Bryan. Any other questions? Yes, Senator Blunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is technical also. I appreciate what you're trying to do. And I believe this is handled or is addressed by court decisions, but I think about my house. I lived in the same house for more than 20 years. I formerly lived in House District 70 in 2022 when we redistricted. And then after redistricting, my house was in House District 67. So if I had voted previously, I would have voted in a House district. Now, obviously, I think I have the right to run, not that I would ever consider running for the House. I want to be real clear about that. Senator Fillingate, Senator Fillingate and Senator Frazier have survived that, but I don't know that I could.
The rare movements that happen the other way.
But I think the law on that is, I think we all agree that people need to be able to run wherever they are currently residing. But I hope I would just ask you to take a look at that to make sure we're not creating a problem, if you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely, yes, I do understand your question, and I think it's a very good question. I will certainly check into that, and we will, I will have a response to that before we bring this up on the floor. Yes, thank you, Senator Blunt. Any other questions? Yes, Senator Bryan.
I asked a question and Senator Blunt asked a question, and it seemed you were more effusive in your praise of Senator Blunt's question than you were in mine.
Well, Senator Blunt was my first member to help me make quorum up here, so he got a little bit more of a grace on that from the chairman this afternoon. Before I take any other questions, I do want to, before we move on with this bill, I do want to make sure we get that amendment in, if we may. So on lines 444, where that is underlined, through line 451, my motion is that we strike that language, because again, that is just duplicative. So that is my motion. Do I have any questions on the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, that motion does carry. Okay, are there any other questions on this bill? Okay.
And strike all is amended.
Okay, the motion is title sufficient, strike all as amended, do pass as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. So that bill will be reported out. Before I entertain the final motion, I would like each of you to please let me know if March 20th works to meet that evening for a fellowship event for Elections Committee. Since it's such a great committee, we're going to maybe have dinner that evening. So thank you. Do I have a final motion? Well, that's a great motion, Senator Bryan. Rise and report. Thank you. Thank you for the quorum and the final motion.